The unexpected prodigy. The crystalline spires of the Galactic Academy of Sciences glittered in the light of three suns, a beacon of knowledge that drew the brightest minds from across the cosmos. Among the throng of newcomers, a solitary figure stood out, not for any exotic alien features, but for her stark normality. Zara Chen, the first human ever admitted to the Academy, clutched her datapad tightly as she navigated the crowded reception area. Around her, beings of all shapes and sizes conversed in a cacophony of languages, instantly translated by the neural implants each student received upon arrival. "Excuse me," Zara said, approaching a towering, multi-limbed creature that seemed to be directing traffic. "I'm looking for the xenobiology orientation." The being's eye stalks swiveled to focus on her. "Ah, you must be the human," it said, a note of curiosity in its synthesized voice. "Xenobiology is in the Epsilon wing. Follow the bioluminescent path." As Zara made her way through the winding corridors, she couldn't help but feel the weight of countless alien gazes upon her. Whispers followed in her wake. "Is that really a Deathworlder? I heard they can only use 10% of their brains. What's the Academy thinking, admitting a species barely out of its gravity well?" Zara gritted her teeth, reminding herself why she was here. She wasn't just representing herself, she was representing all of humanity. Their chance to prove they belonged among the stars. The Xenobiology Lab was a marvel of alien architecture and technology. Holographic displays flickered with images of countless life forms, while strange organisms floated in suspended animation fields. At the center of it all stood Professor Xylo, a being composed of swirling gases contained within a transparent exoskeleton. "Welcome, aspiring xenobiologists." Xylo's voice resonated through the room. "You represent the finest young minds from across the galaxy. Over the next solar cycle, you will be challenged like never before. You will question everything you think you know about life itself." Xylo's gaze swept the room, pausing briefly on Zara. "Some of you come from ancient civilizations with eons of scientific knowledge. Others," another pointed look at Zara, "are from younger races, here to learn from their betters. Regardless of your origins, you all start equal in my class." A ripple of amusement passed through the alien students. Zara felt her cheeks burn, but kept her expression neutral. "Now," Xylo continued, "let's begin with a simple exercise. Before you is a holographic representation of a newly discovered organism from the Andromeda galaxy. Your task is to hypothesize its planet of origin based on its physiological characteristics. You have 1 standard hour. Begin." The air filled with the hum of activity as students began analyzing the strange creature. It resembled nothing Zara had ever seen. A writhing mass of tentacles surrounding a crystalline core that pulsed with inner light. Zara approached the hologram, her mind racing. The other students were muttering among themselves, discussing atmospheric compositions and gravitational constants. But something about the creature's structure nagged at her. She pulled up the Academy's database on her datapad, fingers flying across the screen as she cross-referenced Earth's scientific archives. There was something familiar about the way the tentacles moved, the pattern of the crystal's pulsations. With just minutes to spare, Zara submitted her hypothesis. As she did, she noticed several of her classmates shooting her pitying looks. Clearly, they didn't think much of whatever a human might come up with. "Time's up," Xylo announced. "Let's see what you've all come up with." One by one, the professor called on students to present their hypotheses. Most suggested variations on gas giants or ocean worlds, citing the creature's fluid movements and bioluminescence. Finally, Xylo turned to Zara. "And what does our Terran guest think?" Zara took a deep breath. "I believe the organism isn't from a planet at all," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Its structure and movement patterns are remarkably similar to certain deep-sea creatures found on Earth. But the crystalline core and its pulsations, they remind me of the behavior of neutron stars." A hush fell over the lab. "Are you suggesting," Xylo said slowly, that this life form exists in the vacuum of space? Zara nodded. Yes, I think it's a space-dwelling organism that feeds on stellar radiation. The tentacles would allow it to manipulate solar winds, while the crystal core could act as both a protective shell and an energy storage system. For a long moment, Silo was silent. Then, to everyone's shock, the professor's gaseous form began to swirl with excitement. Remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. In all my cycles of teaching, I've never had a student make such an intuitive leap on their first day. The other students stared at Zara in disbelief as Tylo continued. The human is correct. This organism was indeed discovered in deep space, thriving in the stellar nursery of the Andromeda Galaxy. It seems we may have underestimated the potential of our Terran colleagues. As the class broke into excited discussion, Zora allowed herself a small smile. It was just the first day, and there would be many challenges ahead. But she had taken the first step in proving that humanity belonged among the stars. Little did she know that her journey at the Galactic Academy was about to take her farther than she ever imagined, challenging not just her own limits, but the very foundations of galactic society's understanding of human potential. Unveiling human potential. The news of Zara's unexpected insights spread through the Galactic Academy like wildfire. Within days, she had gone from being an oddity to a subject of intense curiosity. Aliens of all species would stop her in the corridors, peppering her with questions about Earth and human cognition. But not everyone was thrilled with the attention the human was receiving. As Zara entered the quantum mechanics lab for her next class, she could feel the icy stares of several classmates. Professor Quasar, a being of pure energy contained within a hovering orb, greeted the class. Today, we delve into the mysteries of quantum entanglement across galactic distances. But first, a pop quiz to assess your current understanding. A collective groan rose from the students. Quasar's quizzes were notorious for their difficulty. You have 30 standard minutes to solve this equation, Quasar announced, as a mind-bendingly complex formula appeared on the holographic display. It represents a real-world problem in faster-than-light communication. Good luck. Zara stared at the equation, her mind racing. It was unlike anything she had encountered on Earth, involving mathematical concepts she had never seen before. For a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm her. Then she took a deep breath and closed her eyes. She thought back to her training on Earth, to the unconventional problem-solving techniques she had learned. Instead of attacking the equation head-on, she began to visualize it, breaking it down into components and rearranging them in her mind. As the minutes ticked by, most of the alien students were furiously inputting calculations into their datapads. But Zara sat quietly, her eyes closed, her fingers occasionally twitching as if manipulating invisible objects. With just 2 minutes left, her eyes snapped open. She quickly jotted down her solution and submitted it. Time's up, Quasar announced. Let's see how you all did. One by one, the professor reviewed the students' answers, offering critiques and suggestions. Most had made some progress but had ultimately fallen short of a complete solution. Finally, Quasar came to Zora's submission. There was a long pause as the energy being studied her work. This is correct, Quasar said, a note of disbelief in their synthesized voice. Not only correct, but elegant in its simplicity. How did you arrive at this solution, human? All eyes turned to Zora. She swallowed hard, suddenly aware of the attention. I visualized the equation as a three-dimensional structure, she explained. Then I mentally manipulated it, looking for symmetries and patterns. Once I saw the underlying structure, the solution became clear. The classroom fell silent as all eyes turned to Jake Thompson, the lone human, who lounged casually in his chair with his feet propped up on the desk. He was tossing an apple from hand to hand, completely unfazed by the commotion around him. The sight of the fruit caused several of his classmates to recoil in horror, as the idea of consuming part of another living organism was still a foreign concept to many alien species. Oh, don't mind us, Jake chirped, breaking the tension. We're just discussing how you've managed to cheat on yet another impossible assignment. Nothing personal, you understand. It's just that your primate brain shouldn't be capable of such complex calculations. Jake caught the apple mid-toss and took a big, crunching bite, causing half the class to wince in unison. First off, he said, speaking around his mouthful of fruit, it's Homo sapiens, not primate. Get your terrestrial taxonomy straight. Secondly, who says I cheated? Blur BL, the gelatinous student, rippled with what passed for laughter in his species. Well, it's obvious, isn't it? You're from Earth, a death world. Your kind barely discovered space travel a few centuries ago. There's no way you could outperform the finest minds from the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Jake rolled his eyes so dramatically that several classmates gasped, thinking it was some sort of human defense mechanism. Right, because being from a death world automatically makes me an idiot, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. It couldn't possibly be that surviving on a planet that's constantly trying to kill you might. Oh, I don't know. Sharpen your problem-solving skills a bit. The silence in the room was so profound that it felt as if the universe itself paused to consider Jake's words. Zix, the Corton, was the first to recover, his crystalline voice tinkling like wind chimes. But the assignment was to calculate the gravitational flux of a binary pulsar system, while accounting for quantum fluctuations in the surrounding dark matter field. It's beyond even our most advanced AI systems. Jake shrugged, taking another bite of his apple. Yeah, and sounds like a typical Tuesday night homework for a high school physics class back on Earth. A collective gasp resonated throughout the classroom as the aliens exchanged incredulous glances. Glick, an avian-like creature with iridescent feathers, finally managed to squawk out, "You mean to tell us this is the level of education you give to your young?" "Well, yeah," Jake replied, tossing the apple core into a nearby recycling unit. "I mean, not everyone takes advanced astrophysics in high school, but it's an option. How else are we supposed to prepare the next generation for the cutthroat world of intergalactic academia?" The debate begins. The discussion turned into a heated debate. Students argued about their own education systems, their different planets' methods of teaching, and whether or not Earth was truly inferior. Jake found himself at the center of this conversation, realizing that he had unwittingly sparked a sense of curiosity about humanity's educational approach. Zix, now visibly intrigued, leaned forward. "But how could your educators have predicted such complexities? Your civilization has only recently ventured into space." "Because," Jake replied, "we understand that necessity is the mother of invention. On a death world, if you want to survive, you learn quickly. Problems that seem insurmountable are just puzzles waiting to be solved. We don't have the luxury of overthinking. We have to adapt." Glick, flapping his wings in excitement, chimed in, "You mean to say you are taught to face challenges head-on? That's fascinating. Perhaps our own education systems could learn from yours." Jake grinned, warming to the idea. "Absolutely. It's all about critical thinking. At home, we encourage questioning the status quo. When something is difficult, we're taught not to back down, but to find a solution, no matter how unconventional." With the classroom buzzing with anticipation, the time for the challenge had arrived. Students settled into their seats, the air thick with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Jake stood at the front, his heart pounding as he faced a room full of curious eyes, each filled with skepticism and intrigue. They were not just there to witness a competition. They were there to see if this human could truly hold his own against some of the galaxy's brightest minds. Blur BL was the designated moderator, his gelatinous form pulsating with energy as he spoke. "Welcome, everyone. Today, we gather to witness a challenge that will determine whether humanity possesses the intellectual prowess we have heard so much about." He gestured toward Jake, who felt the weight of expectation settling heavily on his shoulders. "Our esteemed human friend will attempt to solve a complex problem that has baffled even our most advanced AI. We have chosen a scenario involving a black hole, a subject of great importance in our studies. The holographic projector flickered to life, casting an array of shimmering equations and diagrams in the air. The problem was intricate. Jake was tasked with calculating the optimal trajectory for a spacecraft entering a black hole's gravitational pull while avoiding its devastating tidal forces. It was a topic that required not only mathematical acumen, but also a deep understanding of theoretical physics, something that Jake was determined to prove he could tackle. Jake took a deep breath, glancing at the audience, who were now captivated by the swirling visuals. "All right, let's do this," he said, forcing a confident grin despite the nerves bubbling within him. He approached the projection, examining the equations that danced before him. The black hole, a massive celestial body with an intense gravitational field, was both mesmerizing and daunting. Jake remembered the stories he had read about them. Giant cosmic vacuum cleaners that devoured everything in their path, even light itself. Yet within that darkness lay the key to understanding the universe's mysteries. "I'll need to break this down," Jake muttered to himself, his mind racing. "First, I have to determine the event horizon, the point of no return." As he scribbled notes on a holographic tablet, he began explaining his thought process to the audience. The event horizon is the boundary surrounding the black hole. Anything that crosses this line is inevitably pulled in. To escape, a spacecraft must enter with a carefully calculated trajectory. The classroom watched in silence as Jake worked through the calculations. He relied on the principles he had learned back on Earth, recalling physics lessons about gravitational forces and energy conservation. He began to calculate the escape velocity, the speed needed for an object to break free from a gravitational field. While he concentrated, Jake noticed subtle exchanges among the students, their eyes narrowing with skepticism. Glick, the avian student, leaned toward his classmates and whispered, "Do you really think he can do this? It seems too ambitious for someone from a relatively young civilization. But have you seen how he approaches the problem?" Six replied, his crystalline structure reflecting the projector's light. "He's not just relying on formulas, he's using creativity. That's what makes him interesting." Jake heard their whispers, their doubts cutting through his focus. He fought the urge to glance back at them, channeling his determination into the task at hand. He was aware that the odds were against him. Many of these students had been groomed by centuries of advanced education. Still, he refused to let that discourage him. As he worked, he made unexpected connections between the variables, weaving logic with instinct. "Gravity is a force that bends space-time," he began, explaining his reasoning. "If I can calculate how the spacecraft's speed interacts with the black hole's pull, I can find a way to slingshot around it, using its gravity to gain speed rather than succumb to its grasp." Jake's confidence began to build as he talked through the solution. This could be an opportunity to utilize what we call a gravitational assist, a technique we've used for centuries in our own space missions. He could feel the audience's attention sharpening, their earlier skepticism giving way to curiosity. Blur BL floated closer, his gelatinous form pulsating with excitement. "Interesting. Can you show us how this would work?" Jake nodded, utilizing the holographic projector to illustrate his concept. He adjusted the visuals to depict the spacecraft's path, showcasing how it could navigate the black hole's gravity well without being consumed. "By timing the approach perfectly and entering at the right angle, we can use the black hole's gravity to accelerate and gain speed for our journey to the next star system. It's risky, but so is everything else in space travel." The room fell silent as his classmates processed the implications of Jake's explanation. His enthusiasm had spread, and the previously skeptical students began to lean forward, captivated by his audacity. Jake's explanation of the gravitational assist technique highlighted not just mathematical skill, but the creative thinking that had long been a hallmark of human ingenuity. "Can you actually prove it?" Zix asked, his crystalline eyes sparkling with excitement. "Do you have a simulation to demonstrate the trajectory?" Jake's heart raced at the prospect. "I do. Let me show you how it can work." As he tapped into the projector's capabilities, the room transformed into a cosmic playground. The black hole loomed large in the center, its immense gravity depicted in swirling colors. Jake animated the spacecraft, simulating its approach and the subsequent slingshot maneuver. The audience gasped as they watched the trajectory unfold, the craft darting dangerously close to the event horizon before emerging, gaining speed toward the stars. Jake grinned as he saw the expressions on his classmates' faces shift from disbelief to amazement. "That's how it's done," he exclaimed, riding the wave of excitement. "It's about understanding the forces at play and using them to your advantage, rather than just succumbing to them." Blur BL's gelatinous form quivered with enthusiasm as he exclaimed, "You've done it. You've shown us a method that even our advanced AI struggle to conceptualize. Perhaps we underestimated your capabilities, Jake." Jake's heart swelled with pride, not just for himself, but for humanity as a whole. This wasn't merely about winning a challenge. It was a moment of connection that transcended species. The once skeptical students were now enthusiastic advocates for the unique perspective that humans could bring to the cosmic table. Vlik flapped his wings in excitement, his feathers glistening under the projector's light. "It seems humanity has much more to offer than we realized. Your approach may inspire a new way of thinking in our studies." As the applause erupted around him, Jake realized that this was more than a victory. It was a breakthrough, a pivotal moment in which barriers began to dissolve. He had not only proven his worth, but had also ignited a spark of curiosity among his classmates, encouraging them to think beyond their preconceived notions of superiority. As the challenge concluded, the atmosphere transformed from tension to celebration. Students crowded around Jake, eager to engage in discussions about their respective worlds and share ideas on interstellar travel. He felt a sense of belonging as he interacted with them, realizing that they were all united by their passion for knowledge. "Let's collaborate," Zix proposed, his crystalline form shimmering with excitement. "Imagine what we could learn from each other. We can combine our strengths and create something truly extraordinary." Jake couldn't help but smile at the prospect. "Absolutely. We can each bring our unique perspectives to the table, and who knows what we might discover together." As conversations flowed and ideas sparked, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was just the beginning of a beautiful friendship forged through a shared love of knowledge and discovery. He had turned the challenge into an opportunity, not only for himself, but for his classmates as well. In that moment, Jake realized that he was not just an outsider in a foreign land. He was part of a vibrant community, each individual contributing to a grand tapestry of ideas and experiences. As they discussed, debated, and dreamed together, the stars outside the observatory twinkled brightly, reflecting the limitless possibilities that lay ahead. With newfound friendships and collaborations on the horizon, Jake felt an exhilarating rush of possibilities. The universe was vast, filled with knowledge waiting to be uncovered, and he, along with his classmates, was ready to explore it together. The challenge had not just been about solving a problem. It had been about breaking barriers, inspiring curiosity, and forming bonds that transcended the differences between their species. As Jake looked out at the stars, he felt hopeful and eager for what lay ahead. Together, they would embark on an extraordinary journey, one that would redefine what it meant to be part of a galaxy filled with diverse civilizations, each with unique strengths and perspectives. In the heart of this new alliance, Jake found purpose, not just as a human among aliens, but as a vital contributor to a grand adventure that had just begun.